So did Joseph suspect Mary of committing fornication or adultery, we might say? Of course, I think most of us, well, a lot of us, should be familiar with the story of the birth of Christ. And to sum it up, of course, that Mary is engaged to Joseph, which is considered marriage, as you could tell by the language, and yet still an engagement. But before they actually officially get married, of course, the angel appears to Mary, says, "You're going to have a child. He will be the Son of the Most High." Of course, she says, "I've never known a man. How could I have a child?" And so the power of God will overshadow you. So she's going to be pregnant with Christ as a virgin. And then traditionally, what I've always heard and what I always assumed myself is that because it says he was going to put her away, in other words, in the engagement. And it's always kind of commonly been suspected that, or understood that he suspected that she had committed fornication or adultery. I mean, after all, she's pregnant. We haven't been married. He knows he's not the father. That's kind of a traditional view. But, once you actually look at the text, for your consideration, I'd just like to say, I don't think there's anything in the text that says he would have suspected that she would have been immoral like this. I don't think that's it at all. So let's look at the text. Matthew chapter 1. It says, "Now the birth of Jesus Christ was as follows. When his mother Mary had been betrothed or engaged to Joseph, before they came together, she was found to be with child by the Holy Spirit. And Joseph, her husband, being a righteous man, and not wanting to disgrace her, planned to send her away secretly. But when he had considered this, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream, saying, Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary as your wife, for the one who has been conceived in her is of the Holy Spirit. And she will bear a son, and you will call his name Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins." Well, so it never actually says anything about him suspecting her of having a bad character, of committing fornication or adultery. By the way, adultery is a form of fornication. But they weren't actually married. It would have been fornication no matter what, though. But he doesn't, or nothing is said about that. Actually, what it says is, the angel says, do not be afraid, implying that was the reason. Now, see, there's no doubt. It says before they came together, she was found to be with child by the Holy Spirit. Well, there's no doubt that this was the reason she gave. She would have told him what had happened. And in a context where Israel was expecting the Messiah to come, well, I mean, that's not far-fetched like if somebody today would have said it. There's a whole background and context here to their people. And he would have known what kind of character Mary had. And it doesn't say that he was enraged, right? That's what you would expect. What does it say? Being a righteous man and not wanting to disgrace her. Well, that's an odd reaction for someone you suspected of having a terrible character, after all, and breaking your trust and betraying you and committing a capital offense by their law. He planned to send her away secretly. In other words, I think he knew what was going on. I think that's the point. You see, after finding out the reason she told him that she was pregnant, he was afraid. In other words, he was afraid to be involved with whatever God was doing with Mary. In other words, evidently God's got other plans going on here. I'm not gonna get involved. But he wasn't told to not be involved, and so he's going back and forth in his head. And he knows, of course, that if he does put her away, this would disgrace her. And in fact, others might suspect this, but he doesn't want to disgrace her, so he's going to kind of do it under the radar. This is to protect her. Because there is no indication that he thinks she's been bad, she's been immoral, she's been loose. No, he's wanting to protect her. Not because he suspects she has committed adultery, but because he's afraid to be involved. He's afraid to marry her because God has got other plans. And the angel is putting his fears at ease. Don't be afraid. Now, if someone disagrees, and not a big deal, I guess, but I just don't see any reason in the text. And that's what I'm always about. What What do we get from the text? Let's not read what we assume into the text. So no, I don't think there's any biblical reason, and every reason against it, to think that Joseph suspected that she had committed fornication. Not at all. I don't think so at all. I think he was afraid to be involved with what God was doing. So, thanks for listening.